Ever since I made my video talking about Welcome Home not that long ago, I've been wanting to talk more about different alternate reality games on the internet that I find pretty interesting. There are a lot of ARGs on the internet, and there are so many out there that I absolutely adore, all of which are very well crafted and very creative with how they tell the story of the ARG to even the way they get the reader or player to think and act when participating in one. But there is one ARG that I just came upon recently that is quite different from the rest and has more of a comedic tone towards it, which is freaking amazing, and I find it so hilarious and I love it. I am, of course, talking about Gilbert Garfield. So what is Gilbert Garfield? And what's the story about this Lost Media ARG? Before I get into it, I want to address that this ARG is more than just Gilbert Garfield, but a full-on YouTube channel and website about a production studio called Ferrone Productions. I'll get into that later on in this video, because there is a lot to talk about when it comes to Ferrone Productions, and the symbolism around the name and the meaning of their logo. I will also be talking about the main important information about the ARG, and what we know about it. And if I miss something in this video on the ARG, which I know I will because there's so much to it and I can't fit it all in this video, please feel free to type it down in the comments below. I'll be reading every single comment I get and might make another video about it in the near future. So Gilbert Garfield is a bizarre analog horror ARG that was created by Max Simonet. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. Now, the story around this ARG started to appear last year on a YouTube channel called Gilbert Garfield, which the channel is now called Ferrone Productions after they took control of that YouTube channel. The first video uploaded to the channel shows what appears to be a fictionalized Max as he endeavors to preserve a suspected lost episode of Garfield and Friends, which featured the late comedian Gilbert Gottfried. Rest in peace. But after continuing his investigation more, he soon finds out that there is a dark and sinister rabbit hole surrounding this episode, the producers and the character Gilbert Garfield himself. It sounds so ridiculous, I know, but please bear with me, it's very interesting. The first video shows himself picking up the VHS tape of the Gilbert Garfield crossover, with the date 09/13/1987. Why does every Lost Media and ARG story have to have VHS tapes in them? I have no clue. But this whole ARG seems to be poking fun of the whole concept of Lost Media ARG stories and whatnot, which is pretty funny. I mean, I did one last year too with my Graggle Simpson video, short film, so, you know, hey, I love poking fun of stuff. I think it's pretty cool that they're doing it too, so, hey, it's pretty epic. Anyways, after this video, we get our first glimpse of the actual show itself and what it actually is. So clip 1, we see Gilbert Garfield talking to the camera, as he is telling a joke to the audience who are watching this episode. Garfield in the show is a mixture between Garfield and Gilbert Gottfried's face and voice. It's pretty creepy at first glance, but it's also kind of funny at the same time. Odie walks into frame and gets shot dead by an alien, who then puts Garfield in handcuffs and takes him into space. We then get a shot of John Arbuckle dead, with a lot of sharp objects in him. That is the first clip. So there isn't really much explanation to what the hell is going on. All we know is that everything is batshit crazy and makes the viewer wonder what the hell happened to John, right? The house blows up at the end of the clip by the alien who blew it up, and yada yada yada. All of this ends up making sense when we watch clip number 2, as it explains more about the events from the first clip. The second clip starts off with the man doing yoga, which this adds on to the immersion that this was cut and recorded on a VHS tape, which I think is a really cool detail they added in. I don't think this is really a part of the lore or has anything to do with the lore of Gilbert Garfield, but it's still really interesting. Anyways, we get a shot of a monitor that shows Gilbert Garfield's face with the text "Wanted." This gives us a better understanding as to why Garfield was essentially arrested and captured by the Italian alien and taken away, and with this information we can confirm that Garfield has something to do with the murder of John and possibly his powers that he holds. I keep mentioning Italian alien, but bear with me, the alien speaks Italian, there's Italian language, yada yada yada. It makes more sense later on in this video. We also get a close-up shot of the alien as they seem shocked and disappointed, and later on in the video the alien dies. And sure enough, bad things happen for not only the alien, but the entire planet Earth, and then we jump to clip 3. Now the third clip is really interesting. The start of the clip, we get confirmation that Gaarfield as well as Odie were the ones responsible for John Arbuckle's death. The date shows 1989 on it. which later on the ARG plays a big role, but I'll explain that more later on in this video. Gaarfield also mentions that this is a future crime that he committed, and then also mentions and makes a joke about Steven Spielberg's 2002 film Minority Report. Why? I don't know. But it's weird because the year of the cartoon in this ARG is from the 80s. Why is he predicting all of this? Well, it's because he has a third eye. I know it's weird and it's kind of creepy, but with this eye he can tell what will happen in the future, as well as the past with his fourth eye, which is, well, in his ass. Yeah, literally his ass.
I'm hungry!
What's also weird is how he mentions Japanese former Emperor Hirohito, which played a role in World War II. Another thing I should bring up is that Japan's allies in World War II were Germany and Italy. Why is this important to a silly ARG of Gilbert Gottfried Gaarfield? Well, what I came up with is that this mention of the Emperor of Japan in World War II, we can link this with the constant references and topics brought up throughout the ARG about Italy and the Italian language. And also the Italian aliens too. Like I mentioned before, why are they speaking in that language? Oh my god, that makes complete sense now. The name of the supposed production studio, Ferrone Productions, is an Italian name. Now, if you translate Ferrone to English, you will get Pharaoh. Pharaoh being head of state of the religious leaders of the Egyptian people. Holy shit, that is a lot to take in. But this kind of makes sense later on in the ARG with the fourth clip, and how it's very Egyptian based. Anyways, Gilbert Garfield wants a tasty little treat, so he goes to the machine and eats a boatload of ground veal, which is fucking vile. He gets big and fat, exits the UFO, and a pretty catchy tune comes up, and while he's, doing his thing, and then he eats the earth. He then grabs the paper from the beginning of the clip, flips it over, and it says that he is an anomaly. Now, clip 4 is the most important one in this whole ARG, and has the most going on in it, and there is a lot to talk about. Everything that I'm mentioning and have mentioned already is probably nonsense, but most of it does make a bit of sense, and the pieces of the puzzle somewhat connect. It's just kind of funny to think about, because I'm literally breaking down so much of this weird ARG about a damn Gilbert Gottfried Gaarfield mashup. I just think it's so funny. I'm enjoying this so much, and I hope all of you are enjoying it as much as I am, because I fucking love this ARG so much. Anyways, this takes place in Egypt. Like I mentioned before in the previous clip, all the meanings of the imagery and text link up to this moment, as Gilbert Garfield is now a pharaoh. What's interesting is that Moses, and the character in this clip, has a very close resemblance to a lost and forgotten character from the comic known as Lyman. If you guys don't know, Lyman was an actual real character from the Gaarfield comics in real life. And this is not a part of the ARG, this is it kind of is, but this is an actual character from the real life comics, and was also one of the main characters as well. Over time, Lyman was no longer needed for the purpose of talking and expressing ideas to Jon Arbuckle, which the character was then removed afterwards. What's more disturbing about his removal from the comics, and explains quite a lot about the murder of Jon Arbuckle in this ARG, is that Lyman was actually killed in the comics, literally. And in some instances, they reference that Jon killed Lyman, or at least kidnapped him and chained him up in his basement. Bro, I never knew that Gaarfield lore would go this deep, but it does. Jim Davis, you got some explaining to do, you silly goofy goober. So then in the clip, Gaarfield makes a Michael Jackson joke, and then ascends into the sky, out of the pyramid, flies into the sun, and the logo of the Ferrone company flashes with an address on the screen. Now, the address doesn't exist, so don't bother Googling it, but what does exist is the
Wine Country, California,
which is a real place in real life. I'll get to this a little bit more later on, but essentially the Ferrone production website and their company also make wine and have their own winery in that place. Also wine, Italian, the Italian nature of this ARG, it all links together. I'm so fucking lost. This is hurting my brain. I can't keep doing this anymore, but this is too interesting. I gotta keep going. Now, speaking of humor, the ARG tends to switch from horror and disturbing imagery and moments to more comedic tendencies and humor on a dime. This is most likely because Gilbert Garfield's personality is very much in the spirit of Gilbert Gottfried himself. Now, the fifth clip shows the moment where Gaarfield murders Jon, as he constantly repeats, "Jon, why can't I stop seeing things? Jon, why can't I stop seeing things?" That's my Gilbert Godfrey impression. Holy crap, that was horrible. Now, this can refer to his third eye and how he's constantly seeing things. And later on, he cuts out his own eye in the episode, which this can mean that he is revealing himself to literally having a third eye, and that he carved it out so that he can stop seeing. These two moments can be compared to numerous mentions of eyes in the ARG, in which Gaarfield has more than two eyes. He can see in the past and in the present, the Egyptian history and the resemblance around it, and also the Ferrone production logo, and how the logo is the Eye of Ra, which is a being in ancient Egyptian mythology that functions as a feminine counterpart to the sun god Ra, and a violent force that subdues his enemies. This also links to how Gilbert Garfield flies into the sun at the very end of clip 4, which can possibly mean that he is flying up to God, or that he is God, and how it can show that he has power and strength. Another part of the ARG that sounds completely bananas, but also kind of makes sense in a way. In this clip, we also see Gaarfield, who is about to kill John, but we never really see him do it. We then cut to the intro of the episode and the catchy theme song of Gilbert Garfield. We also get a shot of Gilbert Garfield in John's basement with Lyman chained up. Remember when I mentioned the character Lyman earlier in this video? Well, there you go. He's chained up. Again, Jim Davis, you need to explain all of this. What the absolute hell is wrong with you? You crazy, crazy man. There is a moment in the song where the lyrics state shipping Odie's body to Abu Dhabi, which is a reference to the running gag in the actual Gaarfield and Friends show where Gaarfield keeps trying to send Nirmal to the city, which is pretty funny. It's a pretty funny little reference. And that can also be traced back to the ARG and how Odie is dead and Gaarfield wants to ship him out to Abu Dhabi, maybe to hide the body or something. I don't know. It's so fucking weird, I know. Also, remember how I mentioned before the year 1989 and how that plays a big role in the ARG? Well, throughout the video, the year is brought up quite a lot, and made me think, what Gaarfield comic from that year would link well with this ARG? Well, after looking for a bit, I came upon this Gaarfield comic from 10/23/1989. Now, this isn't the exact date from the ARG, which that being in July of 1989. It is still the same year, and has close resemblance to this ARG. This comic shows Gaarfield alone and afraid in his home. It shows that the house he lives in has been abandoned for quite a long time. No John, no Odie, just Gaarfield. The comic then shows that Gaarfield is living in a timeline where he doesn't exist anymore, long gone and dead, and that he's imagining that John and Odie are still alive with him, when they aren't. It's kinda sad and scary to think about. Not just that, but also what the hell was Jim Davis on when making these comics? First Lyman and now Gaarfield essentially being dead, and a ghost that still lives in the house that is now abandoned. Bruh. Now the plot and meaning of this comic has similarities to the Gilbert Garfield ARG, that being death and time. It seems like death, power, and time are the biggest topics about this ARG, and with everything that I brought up, it all links together and kinda makes sense in a way. When comparing the comic and the ARG, time plays a big role too, and is probably where the ARG got its inspiration from. Gilbert Garfield can travel through time in the ARG, and Gaarfield in the 1989 comic is circling through time and the things he sees from the past and present, and he doesn't know what's going on. And in the video part, there are tons of other videos where I mentioned the lore about the ARG, yada yada yada. There are tons of other videos with meanings, lore, and ARG aspects in them on the Ferrone Productions channel and website that I strongly recommend you all to check out. There are videos on the channel such as the No Longer Thirsty video, which includes code and text that resemble Greek temples, vines, grapes, and more, which can link to wine and the winery that Ferrone Production claims to have. More mentions of Italian things. Also another series of videos where the creator of the channel plays a lost Gilbert Garfield game, in which it tells more about the lore of the ARG and leads him to find out more about Ferrone Productions. And a series of videos where the runner of the channel finds out the location of the Ferrone winery, and that in the video that he found on the Ferrone website, where it shows the video titled Wine Tour, there was a name of someone associated with Ferrone Productions. And in this series of videos, it shows him trying to reach out to that said individual. The series of videos also depict more about about the history of the company and the individuals associated with it. I should also mention that other YouTubers who I watch have made wonderful videos diving deeper into this ARG as well, which I totally 100% recommend you all to watch. Link in the description below. There are many more videos on this channel, and if I were to talk about all of them and to break them down, this video would literally be like 3 to 4 hours long. I wanted to talk a little bit about Gilbert Garfield in this video and to break it down and analyze it the best I can, because I can't fit everything in this one video. So hopefully I got most of the important details from this ARG, and obviously I missed a couple, so if I missed a bit, let me know in the comments below. I'll be reading all of them like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Now, if this video does well, then maybe I'll make another video talking about it, but in that video, I'll mostly be talking about the Ferrone Productions Company ARG and analyze that. So if you want to see a video on that, then leave a comment down below and a like. In conclusion, Gilbert Garfield is one of the weirdest and most strangest ARGs that I've ever come upon on the internet, but also the most creative, charming, and comedic ARG too. There is a lot to talk about, and I'm excited to keep up with this Pharaoh Productions ARG and see what it has in store next. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Like, comment, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye! Bye-bye!
Gilbert Garfield.